Hi everyone, I'm Anne Riddell and welcome to Arts in the City. First up, the Schomburg Center is marking 100 years of celebrating Black culture. The center is recognized around the world for its vast collection of books, photos, and art. Here's Donna Hanover.
Remarkable treasures are on display at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture to celebrate its centennial. The building was initially just a branch of the New York Public Library, but about 100 years ago, librarian Ernestine Rose helped make the case that it should instead be something special.
So the Division of Negro Literature, History, and Prints opened on May the 8th, 1925, and it was, as you can see from the flyer, the literary event of the year.
The Schomburg's curator of manuscripts, archives, and rare books, Barry Brown, says by that time, with people migrating from the South, the Caribbean, and elsewhere, Black people made up 95% of the local population.
In 1925, that's the height of the Harlem Renaissance. So as you can imagine, the desire for books buying about Black people is very high. Ernestine Rose, who was a white woman, she hired the first Black librarian at the New York Public Library, Catherine Latimer. So this was the first library to have an integrated staff.
Around the end of the centennial, another huge milestone will be honored. In May of 1926, the library acquired the collection of Arturo Schomburg.
Arturo Schomburg, I would say, is the most famous bibliophile of the African diaspora. So he is Afro-Puerto Rican, and his whole life's mission was to collect what he called vindicating evidences. So this is the tangible evidence of Black brilliance, creativity, and resilience.
One of Arturo Schomburg's good friends was artist Aaron Douglas, who in 1934 painted a series of 4 murals called Aspects of Negro Life. They showed life in Africa, then the Deep South, slavery and Reconstruction, and then the Great Migration North. This centennial is the first time they've been displayed in such a way that people can get up close and see all the fine detail. Schomburg was friends with many luminaries of the time, including the great writer Langston Hughes and sculptor Augusta Savage. The Schomburg's curator of art and artifacts, Tammy Lawson, says Savage was a leading artist of the Harlem Renaissance.
This is a bust executed by Augusta Savage of Genevieve Nelson, who was a nurse at Harlem Hospital. Augusta Savage is phenomenal and noteworthy because she was an artist, teacher, activist. Not only did she have several art schools here in Harlem, she took people with her as she rose.
Lawson says when First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt came to Harlem during the Depression, she was impressed with the Savage art schools and saw them as a model for WPA programs across the U.S. Also on display is a bust from 1873 done by Italian artist Pietro Calvi, showing a Black actor playing Shakespeare's Othello.
This is a portrait of Ira Aldridge, who was a Black thespian who was born here in New York but made his name in theater in London.
Another part of the exhibition is the World War II Letters Project, which was spearheaded by Dr. Lawrence Reddick.
These are letters that servicemen and women sent to their families, sent to each other. Dr. Reddick put the call out in many popular African-American newspapers of the day to let people know that they could send their letters here.
One clipping reads, "These letters tell what the men have experienced in camps and on the fighting fronts, how they have been treated and how they have treated others. Don't throw away that letter." Wonderful photos are on display for the centennial, and LaTanya Autry, Associate Curator of the Photographs and Prints Division, says you can make an appointment to see many more.
We have photographs by James Van Der Zee.
And what was special about his work?
You know, what I love about it is the everyday people who could kind of go to his studio and they could rent hats, furs, whatever. This is an important time for Black Americans. Many people had left the South. They moved to New York City. They wanted to kind of, have this dignity of themselves, and James Van Der Zee was able to give them that. These photographs are by Gordon Parks. This is Ella Watson. This is a picture of a woman who was a janitor who worked in the Capitol building. This is her at work, and this is her at home. He's a very important photographer. He thought of photography as like being a weapon. The camera is a weapon against injustice, against poverty.
The Centennial exhibition also highlights the American Negro Theater, which began and still operates here.
Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis got their start there, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte.
Wow.
I know.
The center's collection has grown from Arturo Schomburg's 10,000 initial items to 11 million. It holds the papers of people like playwright Lorraine Hansberry, Malcolm X, writer Maya Angelou, who also volunteered here, and writer James Baldwin, who was born across the street and came here as a child. And Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther himself, worked here. At the center of the building is a permanent artwork called the Cosmogram.
It is the heart of the Schomburg Center. It's inspired by Langston Hughes' poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. It is also the resting place of Langston Hughes. So his ashes are interred right beneath this fish-shaped symbol here, and it has the words from the poem, "My soul has grown deep like the rivers."
That is the most famous line.
That is the most famous line of the poem.
I'm Donna Hanover for Arts in the City.
Painter Pat Lipsky's celebrated work has been shown in museums and galleries across the country. And now this CUNY alum is also an author, out with a memoir chronicling decades in the New York City art scene. We visited her Chelsea studio.
It's about how these colors are interacting.
Step inside artist Pat Lipsky's studio and you will find color everywhere. Even the wastebasket and sink look like masterpieces in the making. But if you're lucky enough to visit, don't try to categorize her acclaimed painting style. Labels don't have a place here.
Whatever they say, it doesn't come up to what I think I'm doing. Well, I'd say I paint about color. I'm attuned to color, and I'm interested in how colors react. It's a whole world, actually, that you allow yourself to get into when you're mixing colors that you think will work together. Like in this painting, creating a mood with color, linking colors up with each other. Like I have the red on the top, I have a slightly different red a little bit further down. I'd say that I'm focusing constantly on the edges, the way the ochre moves in with the pink, how these colors interact. It has to be perfect. If it's not perfect, it didn't work.
That fascination with color, which was recently on view in this exhibit at Gallery James Fuentes, began as a child in an early art class.
I had my little painting box. I was wearing those white buck shoes, and I was, having a great time painting. And the teacher came over to me. I lived right near the water in Brooklyn, and I had the water and I had it blue. So he said to me, "Why are you painting the water blue?" So I said, "Well, that's the color of the water, it's blue." He said, "No." He said, "It's many colors." He said, "Put other colors in it. Put a little red in it, put a little green in it, because it's not solid the way you're painting it." So that was a huge experience about seeing and about, what would you call it, just being creative rather than just going with a one-shot idea.
Another lasting childhood remnant, this cup, sculpted when she was a teen.
This is an amateur work of a 14-year-old.
But how great that you have it.
Yeah, well, that's just how I am, I guess. But it was just done in school, we had to make a cup. And I was influenced clearly by Picasso, although the viewer might not get that.
Though the cup was spared, the same can't be said of paintings Pat deems less than worthy. When I suggested people might love even those,
I don't think so, but the point is they can't because I slashed them.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's a known thing because in Soho, if you left the painting out on the street, and it's just canvas, it would be picked up. So we learned very quickly that you had to cut them.
After her undergraduate years at Cornell, Pat landed at Hunter College for her MFA.
At Hunter, I met another sort of genius type, Tony Smith, right over there on photographs, who had been a close friend of Jackson Pollock. and also quite a name dropper. So he was also a close friend of Tennessee Williams. I mean, it was all true, but I mean, you knew who he knew, let's put it that way. And I studied with him for 4 years, so when I walked out of Hunter College, I was ready, is how I would put it.
In 1970, Pat's professional career began. More than 50 years and many paintings later, she says a blank canvas is still something of a mystery.
I have no idea what's going to show up. I mean, I have an idea, but I don't know definitely what's going to show up, and that is the hard part. It's just me and this piece of canvas. I'm like free associating with the colors, and I'm trying to create something, but I couldn't tell you what it is. I could tell you that I want it to look what I consider to be beautiful. I want to make something that somebody else wants to look at. I want to share my vision, whatever it is.
Pat also shares the story of her life in the memoir Brightening Glance, including her early days in the Soho art scene, another chapter in a remarkable creative journey. How would you describe the art scene then compared to now?
2 words, much better.
How so?
Well, it was more genuine. It was just a very exciting time.
Still, the specifics of Pat's artistic process remain deeply private.
It's just known in the art world, or it's just known among people in the field, that you never ever paint in front of anyone. It's just a very personal thing. It's what you do. It's mystical.
Now in her 80s, Pat is a legendary and vital part of the art world, with a steadfast dedication to her creative ideals.
Well, I think that art is a spectacular human activity. I think that art is the highest. I think art is the highest activity. To make art, any art, I'm not just talking about painting, I'm talking about writing, I'm talking about music. It's the human sensibility at its highest. And so to be able to share that with other people is spectacular. And when they look at your work, they're connecting with the best part of you.
If you're searching for a fun spot to take the kids this winter, look no further. Andrew Falzone explores a new exhibit at the Long Island Children's Museum that dives into our area's rich maritime history.
Life on Long Island is one surrounded by saltwater. Whether it's the rocky coast of the North Shore or the long stretches of beach that line the South Shore, saltwater encircles this suburb. Part of Nassau County's Museum Mile in East Garden City, the Long Island Children's Museum is bringing that story to life for its littlest patrons.
We're standing in Saltwater Stories, We Need the Sea and the Sea Needs Me, our new permanent exhibit. It actually grew out of programming here at the museum that started in 2009. So a very deep, rich history. Those early programs were also called Saltwater Stories, and we invited baymen, boat builders, fishermen, all kinds of folks that really make their living on the water to come here to the museum and do hands-on activities with our visitors, and they were a huge hit.
Those pop-up programs eventually grew into a bigger collaboration. A national grant helped the museum bring local voices and a long list of experts into the planning.
They gave us a grant that allowed us to have a team of paid advisors that included some of those same folks, baymen and fishermen, fish market owners, members of the Shinnecock Nation, a family who owns a bay house was one of our project advisors, this real robust cohort of advisors that gave us all of this content.
Curator Margot Malter helped expand that content into a full gallery. This 20-foot-long map of Long Island illustrates connections to the water and the science of wind energy. A bay house with a digital window shows what life on the water looks like in different seasonal conditions, and a hands-on fish market uses plush, furry fish that change seasonally and are actually scientifically accurate screen prints based on NOAA images. Kids bring their catch dockside after hauling it in aboard a boat that is authentically Long Island.
It was originally a Garvey boat, and I was calling it as such, which is a very specific boat that a lot of baymen and Long Islanders use. And I showed this boat to a salty bayman, and he said, "That's not a Garvey, that's a Sharpie, because it has a pointed nose."
So the exhibit has plenty of big things for kids to play with, but there's also an opportunity to explore teeny tiny creatures as well. This microscope station is set up so that kids can zoom on into a specimen like this crab, bring it into clearer focus, and bring science to the forefront. Those solutions and stories go beyond artifacts. They're about the Long Islanders whose families have been tied to these waters for generations, including one name you might already know from a very different world. Originally a saltwater sprout from the Center Moriches section of Long Island, Sue Wicks is best known for her time as a star forward for the New York Liberty.
She was a WNBA All-Star basketball player. But she's also now in her retirement, actually running an oyster farm and kelp farm and helping sustain and build this community, only to find out she's like a 16th generation fisher person.
It's not unusual for science and history to go hand in hand at a museum exhibit, but it is unusual for culture to creep in. But that's exactly what happens here at Saltwater Stories. That culture is front and center in this Machoon, a 10-foot-long, 500-pound indigenous dugout canoe, a reminder of how Long Island's original navigators worked the water. In addition to commissioning the Machoon for the exhibit, the Long Island Children's Museum commissioned a second canoe, and it'll be used to educate indigenous children about their history. Culture also shows up in Billy Joel's Downeaster Alexa, a Long Island anthem about the region's commercial fishing industry, which had been in decades of decline even before the song's release in 1989.
Billy Joel has been such a champion for the maritime culture. He is Long Island as Long Island gets. And that video in particular was really a call for the challenges that folks have trying to make a living on the ship.
From microscopes to Machoons, from Sue Wicks' kelp farm to Billy Joel's ocean anthem, Saltwater Stories keeps coming back to one idea. Long Islanders don't just live next to the sea, they're part of it. And the kids who play their way through this gallery are the ones who will decide what that relationship looks like next. I'm Andrew Falzone for Arts in the City on CUNY TV.
Amid the rustle of leaves and the hum of city life, a different kind of rhythm echoes through Central Park, the steady clack of typewriter keys. Our intern Alexis Haddon meets a young poet who turns moments into art, one page at a time.
Her job? She's part artist, part observer, crafting poems on demand for anyone who stops to share a word or story. Her office? A small chair and folding table across from the historic Bethesda fountain. A light pink typewriter sits at the center, surrounded by blank pages, curiosity, and conversation.
I've always written in one way or another since I was little, mostly in like journals and diaries, and I loved English class as a kid. But I didn't really get into poetry until college. I took a poetry creative writing course, and since then I've just been writing a lot of poems. My best friend, actually Zoe Branch, she collected typewriters all throughout college and then post-college. And through that world, she learned about typewriter poetry, and she introduced it to me, and she was like, this is actually an amazing way you can make a living as an artist in the city.
There are hundreds of places in New York City a poet could use as their writing spot. So why did Hannah choose this specific one in Central Park?
I think the thing about Central Park is it's just central and there's so many tourists who come here, and it's always got this really lively energy. But this area of Central Park is just next level beautiful.
Some strangers approach Hannah with many feelings and opinions they'd love to turn into a poem, while others have no idea where to start. Whether the former or the latter, or somewhere in between, Hannah begins to type.
I always tell them that they're more than welcome to tell me about their lives. They're more than welcome to just give me a word or a phrase if they don't want to get too into it. And then we have a little bit of a conversation. Sometimes I might ask follow-up questions. Sometimes people are very, very open right at the beginning. And then it just becomes about becoming a mirror for them and taking what they said and sort of translating it into a poem and giving it back to them. Is, all of the inspiration out here comes from the person who's standing directly across from me.
The result, a one-of-a-kind poem written in a matter of minutes. While there's a suggested donation of $20, many of Hannah's poems are pay-as-you-wish, allowing anyone who wants a poem to have one.
So I was telling her about like new chapter beginning and letting go of things and closing another, but not really being sure on where to go next. But like also this, the strength to move on and the change of light and just like the general course of letting go. I think it was really like speaking to me, like a mirror, a reflection of yourself, but just with words.
Hannah says those reactions remind her of why she writes.
That's one of my favorite parts. Sometimes I'll read it out to them. I usually ask, like, do you want to hear it out loud or do you want to read it yourself? And it's really special when they read it themselves because they're holding it and you can just watch all of the different emotions on their face, like laughter, tears, like watch their expression change. And it's very gratifying and super special.
What began as a personal art experiment has now found a wider audience online. Hannah's videos of her typewritten poems have drawn thousands of followers on social platforms like TikTok and Instagram.
My friend was just out visiting me while I was doing this, actually outside the Met, where I sometimes go. And she just took some videos of me. And she took a video of me writing a poem for a woman about light. And it was horrible sound quality, like everything was horrible. And I was like, let me just put this on the internet and see. And it got like 2 million views or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is kind of another way to share what happens out here and another way to sort of like expand my artistic reach.
From Central Park to screens around the world, Hannah's words carry the same message. Creativity can be simple, spontaneous, and shared.
Can I tell you a story? I'll cry if you want. I'll put it in my bones, and I hope you might be moved.
I'm Alexis Haddon for Arts in the City.
Oh, Hannah, this is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Our next stop is the intersection of Broadway and the silver screen. Our city's theater district has been a creative inspiration to actors and audiences for decades. And success on the Great White Way has also influenced the movie industry. Our Neil Rosen takes a look at some of the best movies about Broadway.
We love it. We think it's a masterpiece. That's why we're here. We wish to produce it on Broadway.
Broadway. Oh, joy of joys. Oh, dream of dreams.
It's been the dream of countless actors, actresses, playwrights, directors, and producers to be on Broadway, to be on the most famous stages in the world, and to see their names up in lights.
This is the heart of New York's theater district, and it's within the walls of all these iconic theaters where pretty much all the magic happens.
People's aspirations to get to Broadway itself, and all the nail-biting drama and drive to achieve that goal, is a subject that's tailor-made for the movies. And indeed, there's been tons of films that do exactly that.
All skies are gray on the Great White Way. That's the Broadway melody.
From the Oscar-winning Broadway melody of 1929 to the big eye-popping Busby Berkeley production numbers set on Broadway, but filmed back then on sound stages in Hollywood, can be seen in such early movie gems as Dames, Gold Diggers of 1933 and 1935, as well as the classic film 42nd Street.
Come and meet those dancing feet on the avenue. I'm taking you to 42nd Street.
One of the greatest dramas about backstage backstabbing Broadway is 1950's All About Eve. Winner of 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, it's the story of a seemingly adoring fan, played by Anne Baxter, who in reality is a conniving, ambitious young actress who worms her way into the life of aging Broadway star Bette Davis. Through lies and manipulation, she tries to steal Davis's Broadway career.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
There have been many Broadway superstars of their day who've gotten movie biopic treatments. For example, there's Funny Girl, where Barbra Streisand took home an Oscar for her portrayal of Fanny Brice, who became famous on the Broadway stage for her many appearances in the Ziegfeld Follies.
Hello, gorgeous.
Mel Brooks' hilarious movie, The Producers, from 1967, is about a washed-up Broadway producer, played by Zero Mostel, who teams up with a shy, nervous accountant played by Gene Wilder. They concoct an ingenious scheme to get rich by producing the worst and most offensive Broadway show ever. What they come up with is a musical called Springtime for Hitler.
Springtime for Hitler and Germany.
Speaking of great comedies, 1994's Bullets Over Broadway is one of Woody Allen's best and funniest. Set in 1920s New York, a young playwright accepts funding from a mobster to get his show produced on the Great White Way, on the condition that he cast the mobster's talentless girlfriend in a lead role. A Chorus Line was a smash hit musical on Broadway before it was made into a movie. It follows a talented group of dancers as they literally lay it all on the line during a grueling audition. They share their deepest fears and personal stories just for a shot for an anonymous spot in the chorus ensemble of a Broadway show.
I used to stand outside the stage door and watch the girls come out and think, can anything like that ever happen to me?
Bob Fosse's All That Jazz from 1979 was a semi-autobiographical film. It's about a Broadway legend with one last show to produce, but his hedonistic lifestyle is catching up with him, and he might just die before the final curtain.
It's showtime, folks.
From 2014, Birdman is a dark comedy following a washed-up action star as he stakes his family's fortune and his last shred of sanity on a Broadway comeback. Constantly battling his iconic superhero alter ego in his mind, he attempts to prove he's a serious artist. It won the Oscar for Best Picture and stars Michael Keaton. 2021's Tick, Tick, Boom is a semi-autobiographical story about the life of Broadway composer and playwright Jonathan Larson. Based on his stage musical, a struggling theater composer navigates love, friendship, and the immense pressure to create a successful musical before he believes his time runs out due to the AIDS crisis. Finally, in theaters now is Merrily We Roll Along, the film version of the Stephen Sondheim Broadway musical. Told chronologically backwards, it's the story of a songwriting team, and as it begins, you see how that team's partnership disintegrates all the way back to the beginning, when they're starting out and have great ambitions to be successful on Broadway. Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame stars alongside Jonathan Groff, who's currently killing it on Broadway in the show Just in Time.
And believe it or not, that's only a few of the movies about the struggles to make it on Broadway. There's so many more. In the Theater District, in Manhattan, the theater capital of the world. For Arts in the City, I'm Neil Rosen.
That is our show for today. Thanks so much for joining us. A quick reminder to check us out on our CUNY TV app and on social media. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Anne Riddell. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. We'll see you next time on Arts in the City.